Hey guys, I'm here today to do a bit of a chatty video slash haul, and I want to talk about the library. So I've started to use the library a lot more frequently recently for various reasons that I'm going to chat about in this video. And I also know that I'm in a different location. This is the same room, but I usually sit like over there. But Johnny is over on the computer and it's a Sunday afternoon, we've got sort of a lazy chilled out day, and so I didn't want to make him like pause what he was doing and you know, move all the camera. So instead I've moved the camera to me. So this is where I usually sit and read my books. And so I just thought I'd put all the books on the coffee table and put the camera there. So if I appear a bit wobbly, it's because I'm not used to recording here, but it's quite nice because I get to look straight out of the window that's behind you. So anyway, I wanted to chat about the library a little bit because I have a sort of bizarre relationship with the library, and I know lots of people who have channels use the library a lot more frequently than I do, and it's always something I've been sort of interested in but not until now sort of fully got into myself. So effectively, when I was a child I used the library loads. My mum took us to the library every single Saturday and I'd get 10 books out from the children's library, which at the time was the limit that I could get out. And it was part of my sort of routine that every Saturday I'd then go home from the library, I'd sit with my stack of 10 books, I'd read the blurb and the first couple of pages, and then I'd order the books in the order I wanted to read them in. I carried that on into adulthood, but because of the amount of books I now own, I don't like order whenever I get a book haul because there's also several hundred that I still haven't read sitting there. But it's something I still do. I still read the blurbs and the back and the first couple of pages and stuff, so it's something I really enjoyed as a child. And then as I became a teenager I started going shopping with my friends at the weekend instead of going to the library, and I started to get pocket money. I'd spend a lot of that pocket money on books, but my friends weren't big readers, so it would be more like a pop in a bookshop. You know, I would get sort of 20 minutes to look at books without my friends getting bored, whereas when we went to the library with my mum we could spend ages in there, you know. So it became sort of a different thing, and then as I went into college and then university, my reading slowed down an awful lot. And when I finished university, I got back into reading a lot and started the channel, but never really got back into using the library. And a lot over the years I've sort of said that part of the reason I don't do that is twofold really. One is that I like having a collection of books. I like looking at a wall filled with books and that representing who I am as a reader, and you know, it reminds me of what I've read other than just like having a page on Goodreads. There's a physical representation of the things I've read and enjoyed. And secondly, a lot of the things I read I don't think my library would stock. One thing I found with, so I live in Norwich and we have actually quite a good library. Our library was built in the year 2000, so it's fairly new. It has a restaurant in it, a cafe, a gift shop. It has an atrium where they do book fairs and events and craft fairs and food stalls and stuff, so it's really, really good. They organise lots within the city, and it's a big sort of meeting point, not just for readers. So it's a really nice place to go and spend time. But I found when I started to visit the library when we moved here a few years ago, that they don't tend to stock a lot of independently published books, especially independently published fiction from sort of the US and Canada. And when I see American people do book hauls, I'm always amazed by the indie books they manage to find in their library that just wouldn't get stocked in my library. Even in sort of my county I couldn't sort of request it from other libraries. So for that reason, you know, a lot of the stuff I read I didn't think I could get at the library and sort of didn't really use it for much. A couple of years ago I got a library card and I started using it for comic books, and then I sort of fell out of reading graphic novels, and lots of the graphic novels in my library, and I think probably most library stock, are superhero or action based. Isn't really my thing. And so I hadn't used my library card in probably about 2 years. And then a couple of months ago I decided I wanted to try some more fantasy books out, but I didn't really want to spend money and take the risk, so I thought I'll just go pop to the library and get some out, which I did. And then when the Man Booker long list was announced, again trying really hard not to spend money at the moment because I'm trying to pay a few things off, and so 3 of the books that I was interested in I reserved at the library, and I thought, well, if I really enjoy them I can then ask for them for Christmas or I can purchase them myself. So as I've been going into the library to pick up these fantasy books or pick up these Man Booker reservations, I've been drawn in by other things. And whenever I see people do library book hauls and say, oh, I was at the library and I couldn't help it, I got all these books, I always think, oh, that's mad because you have so many books I've seen you haul, like how are you drawn in to then get more books from the library? Having like going to the library sort of a couple of times a week for the last few weeks, I know it's incredibly easy to do. One thing I have sort of limited myself to mainly is I'm getting books out from the library that are either non-fiction, which I don't own as many of, or books that I think are more of a risk. So I'm unsure if I'll like them or if I'll like them enough to keep them. So I think I've mentioned this before, I only keep books that I gave 4 or 5 stars to. And actually, if I was to look at the books I've read so far this year, I've probably got rid of more books than I've kept. I've read about 95 books this year, and I would guess that, you know, a lot of those I haven't kept because they haven't been books that I want to reread or books that I enjoyed enough to warrant a space on my shelf. So it seems a bit mad that I buy books, or I'm sent a lot of books from publishers, when actually I don't tend to keep a lot of them. So it's starting to make more sense to me to use the library. But what I'm limiting myself to is I'm trying to stop myself from getting literary fiction out from the library, because I have so many literary fiction books that I own and haven't read. It seems like counterintuitive to then slow the process of reading them down. So the majority of these are non-fiction, and you'll see what the sort of fictional ones are. So yeah, that's my sort of big chat about the library. I've been really enjoying it. I've been reserving a lot of these books, so most of these I didn't go in and just browse, I reserved. How it works in the, I think maybe England, I don't know how it works in the rest of the UK, is that if you reserve a book, even if it's in your own library, they charge you 60p, or I think this is how it works in the whole of England. This is how it works in my county. So even if it's held in the Norwich Millennium Library, which is my local library, they'll charge me 60p to move it off the main shelf and put it on a reservation shelf with my name on it. And they'll charge me 60p regardless of whether it's in Norwich Library or whether it's in another library in the county. I'll get charged 60p. Now I don't mind that, because I think it's contributing to the library, it's helping them out, and it saves me from going in and sort of looking through all the shelves in the limited time I have after work or at weekends, especially because the main shelves are closed on a Sunday. So a lot of the time when I'm free would be a Sunday, and when I can't go and browse on a Sunday because the main shelves are shut off, there's only the quick browse floor that's open. So most of these were reservations, and I think my library's got a pretty good stock level, more than I thought. There are a lot of books I've typed in on the reservation they don't have, like they haven't got any books by Nnedi Okorafor, which I think is quite bizarre, like she's fairly well known. And I've heard people say you can talk to the librarian and ask them about getting things in, but I sort of feel a bit cheeky doing that because I could just buy it myself. So I'm holding off and just using what they have in stock. But anyway, these are the books I have. So firstly, these two are ones I didn't reserve. I just saw as I was checking other books out, they were near the quick checkout shelf, and I decided to pick them up. I had this on my wish list for a while to buy. This is Pimped State, Sex, Money and the Future of Equality by Kat Banyard. Apologies about the shininess. And this is a collection of about 7 essays on the sex industry, so that includes pornography and prostitution. And yeah, it's just her analysing that with a sort of feminist viewpoint. Like I said, I've wanted to read it for a while. It's quite short, and I saw it there and thought, do you know what, I'm just going to get it out, and if I do really enjoy it then I can always go back and pick it up. The only thing I do find about that is that I tend to, if I really enjoy a book, I mark pages with like tabs and stuff. And I'm finding that if I then take them back to the library and then think, well, I'll buy them in the future, I'm going to have to like note down where I tabbed and stuff. So that's a bit of a shame, but like I say, the majority of books I tend not to keep, so it makes more sense to use the library more than I have been. And this is one I hadn't heard of. This is The Fight for Beauty, Our Path to a Better Future by Fiona Reynolds. Now I feel quite naughty getting this one out because I have so many nature non-fiction books that I haven't read. Last year I decided I really wanted to try and get into reading nature non-fiction, so I picked loads up and haven't read any of them. And then I saw this cover and I was drawn in. So the lady who wrote this was the Director General of the National Trust. The National Trust are an organisation in the UK that look after old heritage buildings and landscapes. And this is sort of her take on conservation in the UK and how she doesn't think we're protecting beauty. We've sort of lost the idea of what the concept of beauty in nature is. I don't know if I'm going to agree with her, because I don't think we should protect for beauty. I think there's lots of things that will make a longer term difference to the earth than protecting something because it's pretty. But I'm willing to hear her point of view, and I'm sure, you know, she's put a lot of research into this, so I'm intrigued. Then I reserved most of the rest of these. So We'll go through a few. Now, this is one I've had on my list for a while to pick up as well. This is The Fabled Coast, Legends and Traditions from Around the Shores of Britain and Ireland by Sophia Kingshill and Jennifer Westwood. This is a collection of myths and legends, exactly what it says. Now, like I said, this is one I've had on my list to pick up for a while, and I decided in the end to get it from the library because I'd never seen it in the flesh, and I wanted to see what it was like before I picked it up. And actually I'm quite glad, I think, now that I didn't buy it, because actually it is what it says, but I expected it to be set out a little differently. So it's split down into location, which is quite cool because when I got it out I just flicked straight to East Anglia and had a little look at my local myths and legends. And then within each area, basically it just has a title, and then you get like a page, maybe two, about that myth or legend, and then it just moves straight on to the next one. So it's not sort of a commentary on how all these myths and legends come together or anything like that. It's just almost like a glossary of these myths and legends. So it's like nearly 500 pages long, and it probably contains nearly 500 myths and legends. So it's not a book I'd want to sit and consistently read. I think it perhaps is just a book that I'd be intrigued to dip in and out of, about places that are dear to me maybe, or particular myths that I'm interested in. So yeah, you know, I'm sort of glad I got this one out from the library, and it was definitely worth doing. And then the other one that I'm glad I got from the library is Boreal, a collection of new woodland writing edited by Adrian Cooper. Now, this came out last year and I had it on my pre-order list, and I didn't buy it because it was really pricey. Now, I thought it was a coffee table book that was a collection of photography and then essays to match each photograph about particular areas of woodland. And actually it's not. There's very few pictures. The pictures that there are look like that, so they're not, you know, big, beautiful, full colour. I thought this was going to be like a glossy book, if you know what I mean. And actually this is, oh, there's a couple of colour ones. But yeah, this is a collection of writing on woodland, and they're all different. Some are poems, some are short stories, some are essays, some are histories of woodlands, all those sorts of things. So again, I don't know if this is a book I'll read all the way through. I'm going to start it and give it a go, but I'm glad I didn't spend like £25 on this, and actually got out from the library and gave it a look first. But let me know if you read this, because the size is a bit daunting and it looks quite dense and academic. So I'm not quite sure if it's really for me, but obviously I'm going to give it a go before I have to return it and see what I think. And then these next four I'm really excited about. These are all non-fiction still, and then I'll talk about the fiction at the end. So I saw Louise from the Big Head Bookworm. I love her channel. She's like so enthusiastic and cheerful, really makes me laugh and smile, and she reads such a variety of stuff. So I don't know how anyone couldn't like her channel. I think there's something for everyone, so definitely go and check her channel out. I'll link it up here somewhere. So she spoke about this a few weeks ago, and she reads quite a lot of true crime, so I you know, trust her recommendations. This is True Crime Addict, How I Lost Myself in the Mysterious Disappearance of Maura Murray by James Renner. Now, Louise described this as quite sort of a readable book, quite fun and quick to get through, which is what I've been craving recently, as you'll see when I talk about the fiction books I've got. In the first week of this month, I read 6 or 7 books, and I was like, this month is going to be phenomenal, I'm going to read so much, and then it ground to a halt. I've been back working full-time for a couple of weeks, and I've just been really tired. I think changing season and working full-time has sort of worn me out a little bit, and I've just barely read, and the stuff I've been reading I've not been loving, so it just really slowed me down, and yeah, I haven't really read much at all. And I looked at my bookshelves and just thought, none of that's inspiring me. Like, other than the non-fiction, I don't want to read any of those dark, depressing literary fiction books that I have, because most of the stuff I own is dark, depressing literary fiction. And I felt like some easier stuff, and really felt like non-fiction. So this sounded like the right sort of thing. So effectively, he's a true crime investigative journalist, I think, and he got obsessed with a certain case, and this is about what that did to his life and the dangerous situations it led to him being in. I find this sort of thing really intriguing because I've just started to get into true crime, and I'm always quite interested in the life of the person investigating it, because it must be such a draw on your own life, and it must really overlap into your personal life, and also how intrusive you have to be, and where's the line. So yeah, I'm intrigued by this one. I think this is one I'll probably try and start later today. And then I mentioned a couple of weeks ago when I reviewed some Sarah Moss books that I wanted to learn more about mental health in the Victorian period, and I'd heard about this one This is Inconvenient People, Lunacy, Liberty and the Mad Doctors in Victorian England by Sarah Wise. I think this came out last year. I saw a few people haul it. I don't think I've heard anyone review it. And again, I'm glad I got this from the library because this is a bit different to what I expected. This is actually a collection of 12 true life accounts that Sarah Wise found, and she's recounted in here, about people who were put in what at the time were called asylums by their family for different reasons. So some of these people, I'm guessing, weren't actually mentally ill, and perhaps their family wanted some sort of inheritance, or perhaps they were causing trouble for whatever reason. And supposedly these are a bit shocking. I saw some people say it was a bit funny, so I don't think it's quite what I'm looking for, but I'm thinking that perhaps it will give me a starter's insight, and then maybe it will lead to me finding out about some other books to pick up. So there's that one. And then recently I've been loving Ange from Beyond the Pages. She's been doing loads of non-fiction heavy book hauls, and she tends to read a lot of historical non-fiction with a big focus on royal families and the monarchy and stuff like that. Now, I'm not particularly interested in royal families or the monarchy, mainly because I don't really support the concept, but I have done some research into some books that are sort of against the monarchy, and so I'm going to try and track those down. But I also wanted to just learn more about Britain because I have a really poor history of my own country, and I have a poor knowledge of most countries, but it's particularly embarrassing about my own. So I've got a couple books I think that hopefully be like a starter level, but do please give me more recommendations. So I saw Ange haul this one. This is A History of Ancient Britain, the epic story of a nation forged in ice, stone and bronze by Neil Oliver. So this is all the way from the beginning, all the way up to the Romans. So yeah, I'm hoping this is fairly easy. I think there's a BBC series that goes with it, so I guess I could always give that a watch after I've read this. And again, this is one I hope I'll get to fairly soon. Then this is In the Land of Giants, A Journey Through the Dark Ages by Max Adams. These are both quite chunky books, nearing 500 pages each. So this is told as a travelogue. So the author did 12 journeys across the UK, and mainly by walking, one by boat, a couple by motorbike I think. And during these journeys he tells you about what that area was like during the Dark Ages, and pulls together sort of the history of the Dark Ages. And yeah, it says that it's going to offer some sort of fascinating glimpse into this period that we don't know much about. I know absolutely zero about the Dark Ages. I literally know that it's called the Dark Ages. Embarrassingly, I couldn't even tell you the time period the Dark Ages happened in. How bad is that? So yeah, I think I need to start learning some stuff, so I got this one out, and I'm hoping, because it's mixed with like a travelogue, that sounds like it's going to be fairly easy to read, and hopefully my mind won't be blown too much. So there is that one. Then I think I'm on to the fiction now. So firstly, I have, as I said, I've reserved a few of the Man Booker long-listed books. You may have already seen that I have read and reviewed Elmet, because I received that one a few weeks ago and returned it so the next person could read it. Really enjoyed it, and so it was one of those ones where I don't wish, because I'm glad I got it from the library, but I tabbed loads of pages, so I'm going to have to, when I eventually get hold of it, remember where those tabs went. But this, I went in yesterday to get some books out, and I thought I'll just have a little look at the reservation shelf, because sometimes you know, I'll check my emails and notice that the reservations have come in, and this one's waiting there for me. So this is History of Wolves by Emily Fridland. I'm still waiting for Reservoir 13, but I think I'm like 13th in the queue for it. I find it pretty mad that they've got like one copy, but yeah, they have, and so I'm gonna have a long wait. I don't think I've even moved from like 13th in the line, so maybe the other person's just not taking it back, but yeah, it's not a big deal. I've got plenty of other books we're getting on with, so I'm pretty sure most of you have heard of this one. I'll try and read it quite quickly, even though, as I said, I'm not really feeling into serious literary fiction at the moment. I just don't think I can concentrate enough. But obviously there are people waiting behind me in the queue for this one, so I'm going to try and push myself to pick it up, and hopefully I'll really enjoy it. So because I've been struggling, as I said, to read serious literary fiction, I've just been craving like easier sort of palette cleansers, and I have been watching the BBC adaptation of Strike by J.K. Rowling, and I'm really enjoying it. And then they freaking screwed us all over and told us that book 3 isn't going to be adapted until next year, so I was gutted, because book 3 is my favourite. And so I re-listened to it on audio. That's how I listened to them the first time round, and really enjoyed it. And when I finished it, I thought, do you know what? I think what will actually be nice and easy for me to get through when I get home from work and I'm tired, something that will get me wanting to turn the page is going to be some mysteries. Now, as you know, I do not read mysteries, and pretty much the only mysteries I've listened to or read have been the J.K. Rowling ones. And then I tried In the Woods by Tana French on audio, thought it was alright. I read The Dry by Jane Harper last month, didn't think it was that great. That's pretty much, like, in recent years where my foray into mysteries end. But there's quite a few people on BookTube who talk a lot about mysteries and like push me to want to pick mysteries up. So I went in yesterday quickly before I had to go somewhere, and I actually browsed for these ones. I was looking for one other book which I couldn't find, so I may have to reserve that one, and that's Still Life by Louise Penny. She's a Canadian author, and I think there's 13 books out. I think it's called the Inspector Gamache series, I'm not sure. And I hear lots of people talk about her as a really good sort of literary fiction mystery writer, but I couldn't find her first book, and I don't want to like start later in the series, so I'm going to try and find that one. But the other author I really just wanted to find any of her books was Attica Locke. So this is The Cutting Season. I've heard loads of people rave about her, say that she's a really good mystery writer. She does different stuff of the genre, and it's not just, you know, the same old tropes. I was showing Johnny these books yesterday after I got them from the library, and he did laugh at the tagline, which is "Bury your bodies deep and your secrets deeper," which I do think the way mysteries are marketed tends not to be aimed at the sort of thing that would push me to pick a book up, but I have heard really good things about this, and the idea intrigues me. So basically we're following a woman who manages a old historic plantation house in Louisiana, and then they find another woman's body there, and it says that there's police on site, an investigation in progress, and a member of staff no one can track down. And, you know, she begins to wonder how much danger are they in. And I think this is sort of Southern Gothic, and there's lots of commentary on the history of slavery, and, you know, some of these plantations having been converted into sort of luxury houses and stuff. And so yeah, I read the first couple of paragraphs of this and felt drawn in pretty quickly, so I'm quite excited about this one. And then my number one book that I wanted to find, I've heard loads of people recently talk about cosy mysteries. I don't think I've ever read a cosy mystery, and they seem like the sort of thing I really need at the moment, something that I'm just going to really enjoy, make me feel quite warm and fuzzy, and so I thought I'm just going to try and find some. And the one that's been intriguing me the most is Maisie Dobbs by Jacqueline Winspear. So this is the first book in a series. I don't know how many there are out. I'm hoping, if I like it, quite a few. And Maisie Dobbs is a private investigative journalist. This begins in London in 1929, and it says that she is forced to revisit her own turbulent experience of the Great War because of this investigation she does. And it says her first case combines a gripping investigation with a moving portrait of love and war. And I read the first 2 pages and I loved it. I felt instantly really cosy and drawn in. And yeah, just can't wait to sit this evening and hopefully get a good chunk of the way through this. And I was looking through, there was a massive crime section in my library. I was looking all the way around and I was like, so many of these things, like I'm sure there should be some more names that I recognise, that I've heard people mention, and wasn't seeing them, and I was so glad when I finally got to the W's and I saw this one. So yeah, can't wait to read this one. And then lastly, I've heard a few people mention this one and I've been intrigued but not completely compelled. And that's The Beekeeper's Apprentice by Laurie R King. Now the reason I've not been completely compelled is because I've never read any of Sherlock Holmes' books. I've seen the first series. I gave up with the BBC series. Was it BBC? I don't remember. I gave up on the wedding episode after that because I thought it got ridiculous, so that annoyed me and I stopped watching. But I enjoyed you know, the initial episodes, but that's, you know, where my sort of knowledge of Sherlock Holmes ends. And so I weren't sure if I'd get all the nuances, but I've heard a few people talk about this and say they really enjoy it. So this is about, it's set in 1915. Sherlock Holmes is retired and he's living in the countryside, and he, or a young girl basically stumbles, called Mary Russell, she stumbles across him in the countryside, and I believe they begin to work together. and I think this is quite an ongoing series as well. There's quite a few out, and the library had quite a lot of them. So yeah, I don't know if I need to know a bit more about Sherlock Holmes, but I'm hoping not, and I'm hoping that I'll enjoy this one as well. So do let me know if you have any other recommendations for good mystery series to try. As I said, I want to try and get more into mystery, but I do lean towards the more sort of literary stuff, I guess. Attica Locke sounds like she's going to be that, and Louise Penny does as well. And I'm much more focused on the characters. So if there is a series that has ongoing characters, then, you know, with the Cormoran Strike series, I think the mysteries are pretty rubbish. I think that's generally acknowledged. The mysteries, especially the second one, is ridiculous. But you read for the characters, you read for Robin and Strike. So yeah, I'd definitely be intrigued to hear about some stuff like that. And definitely cozy mysteries. I really want to try, and if I like these two, to pick some more up. So do give me some more recommendations, and I can have a little look on my library's online system and see if they have them for me to reserve. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.